Let's get cracking then. But I will just shut Outlook down so it doesn't ding. All right, good evening and welcome everyone. It's great to have you here. I've got the lovely Aisha Hilton here helping. She's recording for us tonight. And my clinical lead, Karen McMaster. Karen's going to keep an eye on the chat and any questions that you might ask, and she'll kind of consolidate them all and feed them back to me at the end for a question and answer time. I don't actually keep an eye on the chat or who's in once I start talking, because I get all trying to do too many things at once and it doesn't quite work. So I'd just like to start by honouring the elders on the land on which we now stand, elders past, present and emerging, and just really consider what it means to pay honour to them, and that wherever we are, whether we're in Redbank Plains in Queensland, or we're in Rockingham in Western Australia, or we're down in Harvey in Tasmania, wherever we are, that the traditional owners, our elders, have done family and learning together in this space, and we stand on the shoulders of greatness. All right. What we're going to do tonight is, last webinar, I talked about what demand avoidance was and what pathological demand avoidance is, just to really clarify. So I'm just going to quickly recap that because there's a couple of people who weren't here last time. So I'm just going to run through that really quickly. So demand avoidance is the act of putting a whole heap more energy into avoiding the task that you've been asked to do than actually doing it. Now, we have the age-appropriate behaviour that is part of that. Like, every kid avoids doing tasks. My goodness me, I avoid doing tasks. I watch TV, I play games on my phone, I go out and water the garden, I fiddle with stationery and I stare into the air. I absolutely avoid things that I need to do. But I probably don't put more energy into avoiding than what I do. And I've learned some management strategies around that. And then, so we have our normal age-appropriate development, and then we have our extremes. So the child wants to do things, but they can't for whatever reason. Demand avoidance is actually more than just not wanting to do it, because often they actually really do want to do what you're asking them to do, but they just can't. They often have another narrative going around why they can't. And we often see this demand avoidance in ODD, ADHD, RAD, ASD, Down syndrome, anxiety disorders, and some of the really complex chromosome disorders. It's most commonly known as part of the autism spectrum. So we would say somebody has autism spectrum with a pathological demand avoidance profile. However, I think that with severe anxiety, no matter what the core disorder is, we often see this demand avoidant behaviour. And one of the things I've just written down here that I wanted to really talk about in relation to this, it isn't on one of the slides. I've just been doing some pondering, so I wanted to have a chat with you about it, is the whole concept of theory of mind. So one of the indicators of an autism spectrum disorder diagnosis is a lack of theory of mind. And that just doesn't really seem like it means very much. But when they're talking about theory of mind, what they're talking about is the ability to understand what's happening for you and to understand what's happening for somebody else, but to be able to put yourself in somebody's shoes, in somebody else's shoes, to have empathy for someone. Now, most of these kids just can't do that. And I was talking with a parent the other day about this, and we were going, yeah, we know, no empathy, no theory of mind, can't put themselves in other people's shoes. But we then extended and spoke more about that. And what we were saying was that their behavior was so extreme. We were discussing how extreme the behavior was and how violent and how aggressive and how cruel what they were saying was in response to demands being put on them. And it's actually because they have no theory of mind, they can't even imagine that you would have. So because they don't experience theory of mind, they don't experience the ability to put themselves in someone else's shoes, they don't know what that is. So they have no insight into the fact that you would have theory of mind, that you would have compassion and empathy, that you could imagine how they feel, that you can actually see and understand their level of anxiety and distress. That is just a concept that is so foreign to them. They just do not get that at all. So a lot of their extreme behavior is to actually communicate with you their level of distress, because they don't think you can tell that they're distressed just by looking at them. They have an absolute compulsion to make you feel what they're feeling. So the worse they're making you feel is an indicator of how dreadful they're feeling on the inside. And I always learn stuff when I'm talking to families. As I was talking with this family, it was just consolidating for me more and more and more that is actually what's happening. So if they are hitting you and they're scratching and they're biting and they're throwing things, or they're being smart alecky and just generally revolting, that's because that's how they feel. So one of the things I really want to be working on in the coming months, and I'm going to work with some of my PDA kids, and I'm going to talk with them about my understanding of this and see if I can get some information from them and some insight from them into what can I say and what can I do that is helpful for you to know that I see you. Because I actually wonder if they actually feel like we see them. And that's why they escalate their behavior and escalate their behavior and escalate their behavior. And so where they're safe people, and often kids with PDA target one person. So the person they target is their safest person, because they want their safest person to know exactly how they feel. So for them to feel exactly how they feel, they have to make them feel that way. That's their kind of weird, illogical thinking, but totally logical to them. Now, I'm talking about extreme PDA, but I think all kids with demand avoidance behaviours have an element of trying to make other people feel the way that they're feeling, and that they don't actually have that insight. So I just really wanted to share that with you tonight, because I kind of feel like we're all going on a bit of a journey together, because most of you were here last month, and I think we're going to keep learning together. So if you've got any comments or thoughts about anything that I say tonight, please feel free to put it in the chat. And you guys can be chatting amongst yourselves while I'm talking, putting examples in, and we can actually save the chat and share the chat if that's a helpful learning tool for you. So there's lots of different things that we can do to be supportive. But just, there was another mum I was talking to today, and we were talking about how can we communicate in a way that doesn't create demands. So we're certainly going to talk about that tonight. So let's get cracking with what's on the slides. Okay. Now, I just really want to acknowledge right up front that what we're going into now is not my own authentic material. I haven't made this stuff up. I have researched, and my the main place that I've done the research and got this particular body of information is from the PDA Society in the UK. They are the world leaders in PDA, and this is the world leading practice. You know, best practice. I don't talk about best practice. I talk about leading practice because we're never best. So the leading practice approach for treating PDA. So one of the things about PDA, or Pathological Demand Avoidance Syndrome, that extreme presentation of demand avoidance, it comes as a subset of autism, but often the strategies that we use to manage it are totally different to what we would use for autism, and often quite counterintuitive. So strategies recommended for ASD is a lot of structure, a lot of predictability, very clear boundaries, very clear expectations. They do very well with token economies. They do very well with visual schedules. However, they are counterintuitive and absolutely the opposite of what we would do for PDA. So PDA is a person-centered approach where it is individualized. There's lots of negotiation, lots of collaboration, and lots of flexibility, which is actually the opposite of what you would do for ASD or autism spectrum disorder. We would still use visuals, especially for younger people with PDA. Visuals are still very, very helpful, but we use them quite differently. So for a typical autistic visual schedule, we would go 9 a.m, we do this, 10 a.m, we do this, 11 a.m, we do this, 11:30 a.m, we have recess, and we might have, you know, a few things that we're doing at recess, and we would have the day all laid out. Very, very, very structured, very, very, very predictable. If there was a change in routine, we would have a special change in routine symbol that we would put in there to support them with a change in routine. They need lots and lots of transition support. The way that we would use visuals for a kid with PDA, we would say, okay, now there's two things that need to happen today. Today, you need to have a shower and you need to brush your teeth. They're the two things we really need to get to today. Which one do you feel like you can manage this morning? And which one do you feel like you can manage this afternoon? And then you would negotiate about what time, and you would negotiate about when, what towel they needed, what toothbrush they needed, what toothpaste they needed. And there would be lots of collaboration about the best way to do it. So it's a totally different approach, where if you did that for a kid with classic ASD level 1, 2, or 3, they'd kind of go, oh, meltdown, meltdown, meltdown. But within that, offering two choices, the two things that need to happen in the day, you're reducing the demand, you're still saying what needs to happen, but it's a very different space to be in. Now, for some kids with PDA, that would be too much. It would be, you'd have to come all the way back to, okay, it's time for breakfast. Would you, and choosing their two most favourite things in the world, would you like toast with Vegemite or would you like toast with honey? And just pulling it right back. So it's a much slower process than what you would use with a child with classic ASD. All right. Now, this mnemonic has been developed by the PDA Society of the UK. And they've done it to help us to remember. So P, pick your battles. A, anxiety management. N, negotiation and collaboration. D, disguise and manage demands. A, adaptation. And back to P. And can you see that it just keeps going and going and going and going? And we'll go through each of the letters and talk about the different things that are involved in this. All right, pick your battles. I remember one school I was working with, and we had a boy who we didn't actually understand was demand avoidant, but he had a long fringe, and he used to walk around like this. And the school just could not tolerate his long fringe. They just couldn't do it. They explained that they had a school uniform for a reason, they had a dress code for a reason, and all of their reasons were absolutely valid. However, they actually weren't being inclusive, because inclusion means giving everybody what they need to access learning. Doesn't mean equity and everybody is treated the same. Inclusion means that different people need different things. And every kid in the school knew that this young man was different. Every kid in the school understood that he hid behind his fringe, but the school just couldn't cope with it. And he ended up in his bedroom for 5 years. He's the young man I spoke about last week. So really, it's about picking your battles. Minimize the rules. It really didn't matter that he had a long fringe. And any of the neurotypical kids that had a whinge about it, that they could be supported to get through it, whereas he actually needed that to be able to tolerate the overstimulation of school. The reasons, explaining the reasons to this young person about why he had to have a short fringe were just totally irrelevant to him and totally unreasonable, because his fringe meant he could hide from people looking at him. He could hide from the fluoro lights in the classroom. He could moderate. He could go into a cone of silence. It meant lots and lots of things to him. So explaining the reasons about that wasn't helpful. However, sometimes explaining the reasons why you're a girl who's 15 and you have to have a shower, that's a reasonable conversation to have. I know young girls who are 15 who, if we get them to have a shower once every 3 months, we've done very well. And I know that that's appalling, but that's the reality of the intensity of what a lot of you are going through at the moment. So let's just be real. It can be pretty foul. You know, I know boys who can go for months and months without having a shower. I actually thought one child had quite olive skin. I just only ever known them, and they had olive skin. And then we got them to the point where they could have a shower, but they didn't have olive skin at all. I didn't realize. It had just been that long. They'd been in and out of the shower a few times, but since they'd actually been able to have a good wash. Sometimes we just have to accept that things just can't be done. That might be going to school, it might be getting up in the morning, it might be having a shower, it might be eating with the family, it might be following an instruction, could be anything, but there are some things that just can't be done. And it's not because they're being naughty or revolting, it's just the level of internal distress that they're going through. Giving choice and control, but not total choice and control. When there is violence involved, there's no choice and control about violence. Violence is violence, no matter how you cut it, and it's just not acceptable. Now, I know it happens, and it can happen for years, and it is a part of the process of young people communicating their level of distress. But it's actually not helpful to them for us to allow it to continue. And some of you will be saying, well, what am I supposed to do about it then? You know, that's all very well for you to say, but it's just not that easy. They lose it every day, or if I don't do what they say, they break all of our furniture and they put holes in our walls, and my wife cannot be beaten black and blue anymore. And I agree, those things cannot continue to happen. And calling ambulances and police really, really sucks. And I would call an ambulance before I called the police any day. But sometimes that's what you need to do to actually get the support in place that you need. Sometimes you actually need to have a journal of how many times you've had the police attend and how many times that you've had an ambulance attend and how many times you've gone and sat in emergency to actually get the system to hear you. And that is wrong, but that is the reality. And that's part of getting a team around you that will stand with you while you do that really, really yucky process. All right, anxiety management. This is the key. Anxiety, it's all about anxiety. It's just anxiety on steroids. So if you can get your young person onto some anxiety medication, I'm not super pro medication, although I'm more pro medication than I used to be. I think that anxiety medication is really important because what happens is the level of anxiety becomes so high that even if they can engage with a strategy, it's not going to work because their adrenaline and cortisol are just so crazy in their body and they're so heightened all of the time that they actually can't hear. So they're actually operating in their amygdala. Their amygdala is firing all of the time. So the interesting thing about the amygdala, and look, I've never thought about it like this until I actually read the book Hey Warrior. Just grab it down so you can see it. And like I said, I love learning. I'm learning all of the time. And I've actually seen a shift in some kids, and we'll put a link to the Hey Warrior website on the Facebook page for you. Aisha, my wonderful Facebook person, will be able to take care of that. It's an Australian company, it's Australian language, and one of the things that it says is that our amygdala is like a smoke detector in the kitchen. It doesn't actually think, it just reacts. So if you're burning toast, or whether you've got a huge oil fire on your stove, your fire alarm goes off. It senses smoke and it just goes for it. It doesn't actually have a thinking capacity, it just has a sensing capacity and it reacts. That's the same as the amygdala. The amygdala senses a threat and it just reacts. So whether it's a real or perceived threat, these kids have got their amygdalas firing, danger, Wilbur Robinson, danger, 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 and bigger danger and bigger danger and bigger danger. And like I talked about last time, often they experience their parents sending them into a life-threatening situation. So they think about going to school and the amygdala fires and it's just danger everywhere, real or perceived. And then they actually experience that as life-threatening and thinking that they're going to die. And then parents and teachers are pushing them into those dangerous situations with no escape. And that's where we actually need to reduce the clinical level of their anxiety for them to actually be able to hear that they're actually okay. And to teach them how to actually reassure their amygdala that they're all right, and so it can settle down and they can breathe and get through it. But whilst ever their anxiety is a clinical level, they are not able to do that. I think if you've got a child who is being very violent and very aggressive and school refusing, your first step is to reduce uncertainty. And to give them some very, very clear understanding of your expectation. So one family I'm working with at the moment, we discussed this, and we've decided that for the next 6 months, there's not going to be any more talk of school. And their young person knows no more school for the next 6 months. We're not even going to talk about it. Clearly, school is this life-threatening situation for you. And we know that it is because of the way you're treating your mother. And we understand that you don't understand that we understand that you don't understand that we understand your distress. We understand that you don't know that we can see how you feel and that you are trying to show us how you feel. We get that. We have heard you. We have heard you that you're terrified. We have heard you that it's too much and it's too hard. We have heard you that you don't feel safe. So here, this is what we're going to do. We are going to give you 6 months off with no pressure about school. And we're just going to work on your physical health and well-being. And all we're going to require of you is that you get up, that you do some physical exercise every day, and that you eat a moderately healthy kind of diet. And that is going to be our focus for the next 6 months. And we're going to allow you to decompress and not need to do those dreadful behaviors anymore, because they make us feel dreadful. So we know that they would make you feel dreadful as well. And it's counterintuitive to what you would do for a normal ASD kid, because that would just cause them to melt down and have panic attacks, because that's too free and open for them. They need that really rigid structure and routine quite often. Now, what are we? I've gone off track on the slide a bit. I've just realised. Oh yeah, treat meltdowns as panic attacks and support them through them and move on. Yeah, and that's what they are. They are panic attacks. They only melt down when they're terrified. They only melt down when they're totally overwhelmed. Thinking ahead and looking at what might work and what might not. And trying to see what the impact of the decisions that are made in the family would have on them. The other thing that thinking ahead involves is actually supporting yourselves and their siblings. So really making sure you've got your self-care sorted and considering the impact of everything on their siblings. Reasonably so, siblings get totally fed up and often develop their own anxiety disorders in response to the PDA and the demand avoidance. So they actually need a team built around them to support them. Look, we know siblings can be revolting to each other at the best of times, but just sibling not very nice nastiness, lots of very ugliness can really happen. Just out of absolute frustration. Like just thinking about one young girl that I know that paces in the middle of the night. Now, she doesn't just do a nice little pace. She does elephant pacing, like for hours and hours and hours at night. And sometimes her older sister just totally loses it and comes out and like, would you just stop? And it's on for young and old, and everybody is absolutely exhausted. And so the sibling requires lots and lots and lots of support. However, these siblings are often quite resistant to support because there's nothing wrong with me. It's my sister that's the issue. If she didn't pace, I'd be fine. I don't need anybody. I don't need anything. I just need her to be quiet. So thinking ahead and supporting them and bringing them in as part of the therapy team so that they understand the strategies that are happening and why they're happening and what the goals are of that therapy, so that they can expand to tolerate the process. They may need some time away. They may need a place that they can go and stay for some kind of respite or time away kind of stuff. They're actually going to need some compensatory parenting. And I would normally say compensatory parenting isn't really helpful, but I actually think in the situation of siblings who've got extreme PDA in the family, they do actually need some compensatory parenting. They need designated, regular, quarantined time with you. And your child with PDA will become very anxious about that. So often that will have to be a hidden process and a secret process because it will just go very badly. So by a hidden and secret process, I mean picking up from school at lunchtime and going out on a lunch date, or swinging by Macca's when the other young person isn't in the car. It might be using Family Zone to monitor and manage the internet access in your household, but not actually having them on it, or giving them extra internet time and extra resources that the other people in the family aren't necessarily aware of. Need to support them. Okay, negotiation and collaboration. Oh, wow. Keeping calm, because our amygdala fires off as well. We just see that little tilt in the shoulders or that little turn of the head, and we know that meltdown is coming. And it's like our heart rate goes faster, our shoulders scrunch, our breathing gets quicker. We move straight to the back of our brain and we can't use our problem-solving part of our brain. The fire alarm goes off in our head, the smoke detector goes off, and we can actually set things off a bit ourselves, unfortunately. Not always, but sometimes we do. Keeping ourselves calm probably needs to be about 80% of the work that we do. Because if we can keep ourselves calm and keep ourselves okay and keep ourselves well and have a really good support network of family, friends and professionals, if you haven't lost all your friends, because we kind of did, because you're in a different space than what your peers are and they don't get it. And your child's awkward and they're difficult, and you're awkward and you're difficult because you're anxious. I know Pete and I can be so hypervigilant around our young lad's behaviour. Like if we see him go running off with other kids, we're like, oh no. And, you know, I'll kind of head out and like hover and, but it's just because I know that he's probably going to lose it any minute and I need to be there to pull him off someone. So rather than actually doing that, we stop doing things. We stop going places where there's other kids because it's just too hard, too exhausting. So finding a support team that works for you is really, really, really important. So like where I'm in a couple of online support groups that meet via Zoom that I can attend at night. I've got a staff team that I work with. He has his clinical team that we work with. So it's just about finding those things that you put into your life that enable you to keep calm. So what's your keep calm? Keep calm and have a coffee, keep calm and eat chocolate, keep calm and ring a girlfriend, keep calm and listen to some music, keep calm, sing a song, keep calm and do some gardening, keep calm and say a prayer, keep calm and read a book. Work out what your keep calm is. Get the t-shirt and the mug if you need to. All right. Proactively collaborate and negotiate to solve challenges. bush lawyers, aren't they? They really are bush lawyers. They are so good at manipulating and turning things around and making you feel like you've done something wrong. Or did I really give them that $20, or did they flog it? I'm just really not sure. And maybe they did get $20 from Auntie Sarah and they had it in their money box. Like, I really don't know whether or not to get more Google money or not, because I'm really not, or Roblox. They just can turn us around in circles, and they're great at doing that. So just being very clear on where you need to go, but work out where your flexible points can be. You're going to have to negotiate, but you need to know where your bottom line is, and you need to be able to stick to your bottom line. So don't choose a bottom line that you can't stick to. And always aim for a little bit higher than your bottom line, because then you might actually get a win every now and then. And fairness and trust are central. And this is a really tricky space, because I think trust is tough. We want them to trust us, but because they don't understand our intent and the consequences of some of their behaviour, they are going to find that some of the things we do make us not safe. And sometimes we just have to bulldoze through some situations, even if it does break their trust a little bit, even sometimes a lot. Medication can just be the hardest thing. I know a couple of families at the moment who are going through really tough situations around medication, and they're actually managing to get their children to take medication, and their children aren't necessarily 100% aware that it's happening. And it's a tough gig. Working that out, because we don't want to break whatever trust there is there. One of the things that's hard also is around the fairness thing, and it's about what's fair for them, what's fair for you, and what's fair for the other members of your family. And so this is where a talk about inclusion with the whole family in a family meeting, possibly with a clinician of some kind, who can talk you through the inclusion drawing. At the end, if we've got time, I'll do it. Just write it on my list. Because basically we all need different bits of help for different things. And often siblings and even grandparents find it very difficult, and extended family feel like you're letting them get away with it and you're not putting boundaries in place and all of that sort of thing. So to have a little kind of drawing that you can draw on a scrap of paper and say, well, actually, this is what's going on here. And you know, Bobbi needs, 3 bits of help in this space, but she needs no help here. And Peter needs like 3 bits of help in this space, but he needs no help here. So just giving them a bit of an understanding about what's happening can be very helpful. Okay, disguise and manage demands. All right, so word and position requests indirectly. I think the way that we do things is really, really important and really, really key. And I know we all feel like we end up walking on eggshells all of the time, but if you can find a few non-confrontational phrases that you can start things off with, that can be really, really helpful. So I wonder if today might be a shower day. I wonder if you're ready to go outside today. I wonder if we might have spaghetti from a can or homemade spaghetti for lunch today. I wonder if you might be feeling a bit overwhelmed. So that inquiring, I wonder if, I would say, is probably one of the most valuable sentence starters that I use. I would use it 100 times a day at least. And I wonder what it might be like. I wonder if we could. I wonder if you would have the energy to. I'm wondering if your ability and your capacity to go outside for a walk are aligning today. I think teaching them about ability and capacity is really, really important because they become so confused. So with all of our young people, we know that they can actually get up, get out of bed, get dressed and go to school. We know they've got the ability to do that because when they want to, they can. Or when the reward is big enough, or the payoff is big enough, or there's a blue moon, they can actually do it. So we know that they have that ability. What varies every day is their capacity to access that ability. So if they don't feel like they've got the capacity, and there's so many things that impact on their capacity. Look, it might be a day ending in Y, and so that actually takes half of their capacity. It might be that they woke up because a bird was chirping outside their window and they were in the middle of a good dream, so they're disappointed about that. And so they have a disproportionate grief response to losing a great dream. It could be that the sound of the water going through the pipes in the house when you're having a shower in the morning annoys them. It might be that it's cloudy. It might be that it's sunny. It might be that somebody's left a blind open. They're going to find something. And the more anxious they are, the more the little things that just happen as part of every day actually will impact on their capacity. Just having a little thought then. I just want to get my thought together. Hold on, sorry. I read something today about that. Sue Larkey. I read a Sue Larkey thing today. She was talking about executive function. I'll have to find it and get it to you. She was talking about executive function, and that a lot of these kids don't have great executive function either, and that's about being able to organise. I reckon it's in our reception emails, an email from Sue Larkey today. So if somebody could have a look at that, that would be great, please. So constantly monitoring that capacity and matching what you're wanting them to do to that capacity. So if they've been awake pacing all night and they've just gone to sleep at 5 o'clock in the morning, it is not a day to try for a shower. But if they've actually had a good night's sleep and they've gotten up okay, it may be a day to wonder about a shower. But often they have lots of rules around things that they are unable to do. I'll only shower in the dark. I'll only shower when there's no one in the house. I'll only shower when there is someone in the house. I'll only shower when it's sunny outside. They have all these rules put in place to try and control things to help them to feel safe. And doing things together really helps. There is no point saying to any of these kids who are demand avoidant, whether it's the extremes that I've been talking about, or whether it's just the child that you say, okay, I want you to go and tidy up your bedroom, and they go and spend the whole day in their bedroom and they don't tidy anything. So they become very overwhelmed very quickly. But you saying, okay, we need to do some work on your room. Let's go and do 10 minutes of cleaning up together. that can make a huge difference. Because two people, even just you doing 10 minutes will make a big difference to how you feel, let alone how it makes them feel. All right, adaptation. Have a plan B. Have a plan B about how you can get your other kids to school. Have a plan B about how you can ring your boss and say, I'm not going to get there today. Have a plan B about how you are going to get them in the shower and how you're going to get them clean or how you're going to get them to eat. Plenty of time. Everything is going to take 10 times longer than what you think it's going to. And try to manage that as best you can. Lots of us work full time, and it's really, really hard to allow for plenty of time. And if you've got a kid who's not getting out of bed and you've got to be teaching at 9 o'clock or else you're going to lose a job, it's a very, very tough space to be in. And that's where you have to be flexible. And sometimes I see parents who are leaving, 14, 15, 16-year-olds at home in bed all day when they've got to go to work, sometimes even younger than that. And they just don't have a choice, and you just have to be flexible. You can have structures in place to support them. You can have them check in with you on the phone. You can check in with them. You can have a camera in the house. You can have people drop in. You can be flexible around that stuff. For some kids, mainstream schooling is just really not an option, and it's just not going to happen, and looking at different options around that. And humor and distraction, ridiculousness, that can be really helpful if you can find the energy in your little toe on your right foot to be able to do that. All right, so that's talking through Panda. I'm really mindful of the time. So Karen, I want to flick over to you for any questions or comments. Our hour is not very long, but I want to make it accessible. So we will just keep doing monthly and just keep going and keep going.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Bobbi. There's some good comments and some questions, and we'll do our best to get through them all. Cindy uses, rather than I wonder if she uses I'm curious about, which is another great comment.
Oh, I like that. I'm curious about. Thanks, Cindy.
So a couple of people kindly put some links on for Sulaki, and
oh, great.
Aisha's been working very hard in the background there, which is fantastic. Okay, so we'll just start with a question from Jane. Do the recommended strategies change in any way for non-verbal children?
No. Because just because they're non-verbal, just because their expressive language isn't great, it doesn't mean their receptive language isn't great. And I think, Jane, that's a really, really good question, because I think over the years, I have really missed the whole PDA in non-verbal kids. And I think I've screwed up a few times with that. I've been better in the last 5 years, but prior to that, not having any understanding. So no, I would say the strategies are the same for non-verbal kids. Yeah.
Okay, great. Verity's asked, how do you know when you have the balance of medication? When do you know it's right?
I don't think there is a right. I don't think there's a 100% right. I'm just going to be really open with you guys. Luca is polypharmacy, and we have tried many medications with him. We've done Ritalin, we've done Ritalin long acting, we've done Concerta, Strattera, Risperidone, Catapress, melatonin, Abilify, Intuniv. We've tried all of those. Our current mix is we went off Risperidone because he's just going into puberty, and we kind of noticed a bit of breast tissue starting to develop there. So we were getting concerned about the hormonal changes that the Risperidone brought. The risperidone was great for anxiety and for containing the aggression, but not great for his metabolism. So we are now on Concerta, Intuniv, sertraline, and we've just swapped out the Risperidone for Abilify. Now, Abilify costs us about $100 a month just for that. And so that was why we can't, we're not broke, we can afford it, but we didn't want to be spending big bucks on medication if it wasn't going to make a big difference. But I was so concerned about the risperidone. We did swap over to the Abilify. The process of swapping was not fun. We did that during remote learning because he was home with us. And so he had to come totally off the risperidone, be off the risperidone for a week, and then slowly build onto the Abilify. And it wasn't good. None of us did very well during that time. But he's better now. I think I like the Abilify better than I like the risperidone because I feel like he's a bit brighter. And not quite as a bit, not drugged, but just a bit flat. His affect was more flat on the risperidone. I feel like he's a bit brighter on the Abilify. However, he's more argumentative on the Abilify than what he was on the risperidone. So it's kind of like weighing it up. So do we want the metabolic changes and a kid who doesn't argue, or do we want no metabolic changes and a kid that does? So I don't think you ever get it 100% right. You just got to get the best that you can. Karen.
That's great. Thanks, Bobbi. Just a couple of comments also. It's really hard when there's no family support.
Yeah, it sucks. I agree.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just looking. Justine said that she has some experience with the outreach police officers and have found them very supportive and proactive.
Great.
So that's great to know and hear about. And Kim made the comment that the anxiety questionnaire that she was given is very genetic and worded in such a way that it looked like her son doesn't have anxiety, yet she knows that all of his behaviours are very anxiety driven. So yeah, another great comment there. Question from Brianna: violence is not negotiable. How do you then respond? Like consequences for a violent or aggressive 8-year-old?
No, there's no consequences because you treat the violence as a meltdown and a panic attack. So you don't do consequences for violence. You just do everything you can to not have the violence repeat. And I know that seems really counterintuitive because I tell you what, I wanted to hit back. You need to know I wanted to hit back. You need to hear that. I didn't, but I wanted to. It's really hard, and I have absolutely yelled and screamed back, absolutely. And I've slammed doors and I've yelled and screamed and had my own tantrums. So Brianna, there is no value in punishing the violence because the violence is a product of a disability. And it's a product of not actually having the capacity to self-regulate. It is not a choice. So we can't punish a disability because that's cruel. So the biggest consequence would be around getting outside help because you don't know how to help your child to not use violence, to express their level of distress. I think one of the things that if you can collaborate with the police and with the AMBOs, actually even having someone like Orange Door or Child First or someone like that, I don't mean like child protection, but part of their lower level team supporting you, is it actually does communicate to your child that you understand how distressed they are. I can see how distressed and angry you are, and I actually don't know how to help you. I can see how upset and scared you are. I can't help you. I'm calling the police because I can see how serious this is. And communicating, calling police and calling support services in a different way. I can see how scared you are. I can see how upset you are. I can't allow you to hit me anymore. I know you're scared. I'm getting us some help. Rather than, you know, you hit me again, I'm calling the police. Not that. It's a different approach. It's much more collaborative. It's much more gentle, but it's you know, like an iron rod in your back, and you only do that on days where the iron rod is strong. All right. Okay.
That's good, Bobbi. Thank you. Danielle made the comment that the consequence is also how they feel afterwards.
Oh, absolutely.
Guilt and shame.
Yeah.
As you explained, they can't control this behaviour. Amy had a question. Can a child be diagnosed with both ASD and PDA? And if they have both, how do you manage both structure and flexibility?
Yeah, great question, Amy. So the primary diagnosis is ASD because they actually meet the criteria for ASD. And in Australia, PDA isn't a standalone diagnosis. So the way we manage it is to have it as a PDA profile alongside their autism diagnosis. And what it's saying is that for this child who is definitely on the autism spectrum, because remember it's a spectrum, that the standard strategies that you would usually use don't work. And here is a profile and a cache of strategies that you're likely to have more success with. Yeah.
Good. Amy has a question about cannabis oil and if it's allowed, and if you know if it's allowed for younger children.
I don't know. No, it's a space I'm just thinking about exploring myself, and I haven't done a lot of exploring. So no, I can't speak to that.
Yeah. There was just a comment on chat and I was going to read it, but now the chat's disappeared. So I'll just click it up again.
Right. That would have me stopped sharing.
Okay, it's okay. Sarah just has written in, and I think it kind of probably relates to how a lot of people feel. I feel like I have all the professional help in the world, no informal supports, but with 2 ASD, ADHD, anxious kids, I feel immensely overworked and overwhelmed. I've been dealing with burnout for a few years now. It's nice to see there's others that get it, but gosh, it's crap.
Yeah. Yes, it is. It really, really is. There's no two ways about it. It just sucks. And so making sure that you've got the very best NDIS plans that you can, and getting the best support workers in place that you can, and actually really ensuring that you've got that done really well is critical. We are in our first year of having a good plan for Luca. And I know that sounds crazy as a professional. I have fought for 4 years to get the right plan for Luca. I actually had to get planners outside of my local area to be able to be heard as a grandparent carer, because they kept seeing me as a professional all the time. And they couldn't actually see me as the broken granny at home who actually needed help as well. And so we're in our first year. In May, we got a plan right in the middle of COVID that actually meets our needs. And we're just starting to reap the benefit of that. And I can't stress enough getting that sorted out. And, you know, we do offer a 3-session intensive where we will go through your plan and we will help you with a document that outlines what you need to be asking for, what assessments you need to have, and we'll do a letter for you to help inform your next NDIS plan if that's what you need. Or we can do a one-off consult with you to point you in the right direction, or we can talk to your professionals. So we could do a secondary consult with one of your team. So there's lots of options available there. Often it's knowing what to ask for and then knowing how to find it. It's just not always that easy.
Yeah. I just don't want to miss a question. I can't open up the question box and I see that there might be another question there. So if someone wants to put it in chat, I can read it. Suzanne,
I can read it out if you like.
Thanks, Guy.
Amy was just asking if kids can have, I think, the cannabis CBD.
Yeah.
I don't know. Brianna just said, well answered, Bobbi. So thank you, she said.
Oh, good.
And Amy said, I'll let you know what I found out. So,
yeah, please do, Amy. That would be great.
Actually, Suzanne's put a comment in saying that it's still experimental research phase for adults and there's not current Australian studies regarding use in children at this time.
Yeah.
So thanks, Suzanne.
Yeah, thanks for that. That's great.
Yep.
All right. Now, I'm mindful of the time. I would like just to do that little diagram that I use around inclusion. So if you need to go, feel free to go, but I'm just going to go on for another 5 minutes. Now, I'm not very good at drawing on the whiteboard in Zoom, but I'm going to have a crack. So I've just got to think about how to do it on here. Some of you will have seen this and go, yes, Bobbi, I know, but it's a good reminder. And it's good to see it in the context of you don't have to be an amazing artist for it to actually be helpful.
That's beautifully done, Bobbi.
Oh, thank you, Karen. Okay, so this is a wall. And all of these kids, to be able to access the same thing, they need to be able to see over the wall. Now, the wall can be all sorts of different things. So the wall could be maths or English or reading or social skills or theory of mind or being able to tidy up your room or cook or budget or whatever it happens to be. And some kids need 3 bits of help to do one of those things and other kids need no help. So if you've got a kid in the family with PDA, they actually need 3 bits of help just to get out of bed in the morning. Whereas one of the other kids in your family might need no help at all to get out of bed in the morning. However, your child with PDA might need no help at all to draw OC's original characters, for those of you who don't know. And they can do those with no help at all, and they're actually experts at it. But you might have another child who can barely draw at all, and they need 3 bits of help to be able to draw. So when I'm explaining this, I get everybody in either the classroom or the family or in the workshop, whatever it happens to be, to identify things in their life where they need 3 bits of help, 2 bits of help, and no help at all. So I would say that I probably don't need much help with cooking. I'm really quite a good cook. I need 2 bits of help with accounting. Like, I'm not great. I can do it, but I'm not great. But I absolutely need 3 bits of help with admin because I am just so bad at admin, it's not funny. And so then we just go around and we talk about the areas that different people need different amounts of help with to be able to access exactly the same thing. So you can find this on YouTube. You can find little doodly, things that people have done of it if you don't feel confident drawing it and explaining it. I will often go into a school if a child is about to disclose a diagnosis to their peers or their classroom, and we want to actually explain it for them to understand, so that they can expand emotionally with some support. I use this when I'm explaining a diagnosis to family and extended family. So there's lots of opportunities there where you can use it.
What do we call this, Bobbi, to
Google?
Google?
I don't know, Aisha.
Okay.
I reckon it could be the inclusion fence.
Inclusion wall, maybe.
Yeah.
I will find it, people, and I'll put it on the site.
Yeah, thank you. That'll be great. We'll make sure it's on the Facebook page and it's on the the website as well.
Bricking. Suzanne said it's the bricking wall.
The bricking wall.
So I will Google that and add it to everything.
Right. And look, I probably didn't even tell the story accordingly properly to what the story and the professional people who tell the story tell it. Like, there's probably a really lovely script that goes with it, but I don't know the really lovely script. But you don't need to know the really lovely script to be able to use it either. You can just use it just as it is. Karen, were there any more comments or questions before we let everyone go?
No, you've got through them all, so that's wonderful.
Okay, so we will be doing this again next month. Please feel free to email in any questions that you've got or anything that you specifically want me to speak about. You've all got reception's email. Feel free to just send in anything you want me to talk about, and I'll talk about what you'd like me to. I'll continue to unpack demand avoidance even more. We'll talk next time about how to cope with Christmas and school holidays, and how for that to not be a disaster. So that'll be the main focus of where I'm heading in our next get together next month, but I'll cover anything that anybody sends in. So thank you so much for coming, guys. Go gently, be kind to you, and look after yourselves well. Thank you to Karen, Aisha, Paula and Alicia for being an amazing support team tonight. I really appreciate you guys, and I couldn't do it without you. So bye, everyone. Go gently.
Bye, everyone. Blessings.
Bye.
Now, if I stop sharing.